It's a new product video for the new legacy equipped SD40-2 diesel locomotives. These locomotives are available in the following road names: Norfolk and Western, CSX, Burlington Northern, Frisco, Chicago and Northwestern, and MKT, Missouri, Kansas, Texas. These locomotives are available in 3 different road numbers per road name, 2 legacy equipped powered units, and 1 non-powered dummy unit. The non-powered units are effectively a boxcar that look like a diesel. There are no electronics inside. Out of the package you will receive the engine memory module instruction manual, the locomotive instruction manual, the smoke fluid funnel, 4 replacement traction tires, the pipette for adding smoke fluid to the smoke unit, and the engine memory module specific to the road name and road number of the locomotive. The locomotives feature die-cast side frames, pilots, fuel tank. They have a plastic body, stamped metal frame, dual vertical can motors, directional lighting, directional marker lamps, a cab interior lamp, 2 ditch lights on the pilot that come on when the locomotive begins moving and oscillate when the horn is activated, and coil couplers front and rear. The legacy equipped SD40 is equipped with a single smoke unit located underneath these louvers. The smoke unit is directly below that. It's also equipped with switches to control the programming, the speed control, and the smoke unit and volume. And those switches are located underneath this hatch on the rear of the locomotive shell. It's a little tricky getting in there. You want to remove the rectangular detail piece first so that you've got a place to stick your finger in, get a little leverage on that hatch, and lift straight up. Inside the locomotive you'll find 3 switches: a program run switch, the Odyssey 2 speed control on-off switch, and the smoke on-off switch. In the program position, that's where you assign the locomotive ID number, and in the run position is the position you want to be in to operate the locomotive. When you're operating conventionally, the program run switch is used as your E-unit lockout switch. So if you want the locomotive to go in one direction at all times, that would be the program position. To cycle through all 4 directional states, you want to make sure that it's in the run position. The second switch is the Odyssey 2 on-off switch. In the ODY position, Odyssey 2 speed control is enabled. In the no ODY position, it's disabled. Finally, the smoke on-off. In the SMK position is smoke on. No SMK position is smoke off. If you have the switch in the smoke off position, you will not be able to override it using the cab 1 or cab 2 remote. And finally, we have the volume pot, which is the master volume control for the sounds. Wherever you set that master volume is where the maximum setting on the sounds will be. So if you set that pot at a lower volume, you will not be able to override that using the cab 1 or cab 2 remote. And there's a spot here behind the motor for a 9-volt battery. If you wish to operate the locomotive in conventional mode, you can install the 9-volt battery to keep the sounds from cutting out when you change directional states. Before we put our SD40 on the track, we want to make sure we do a little preventive maintenance by applying some light oil to the axles. Using a needle applicator and some light oil, just going to put a small drop of oil here on the dummy axle up in the front, work that in. I want to put a drop of oil on the axle for the collectors. Work that in as well. Prevent those from squeaking when you're running on the track. And then finally a small drop of oil where the axle goes through the bearing block in the truck. We want to do that for both sides. This is a non-locking gearbox, so you can rotate this gear assembly or truck assembly once you've oiled it. I would strongly recommend not placing any type of lubricant on the exposed gears. is what that'll end up doing if you do lubricate that is that'll give dust and dirt an opportunity to collect to that grease, get bound up in your gears, and ultimately affect your operation. You want to make sure that you oil both trucks, front and rear. Once that's done, we can get the engine on the track and get it running. Before we get our SD40-2 on the track, we need to first tell our cab 2 what engine number we're going to assign this locomotive and load the engine memory module. So since the Frisco SD40 cab number is 957, using our numbering convention of the last 2 digits, we're going to call it engine 57. So we press engine 57 on the cab 2. We take our orange memory module that came out of the box and load it in the top of the cab with the silver circle L facing up. Press the info button in the upper right hand corner. We press the button underneath load. It tells us the module is inserted. It's a Frisco 34784 SD40 number 957, and it asks us if we want to load the engine data. I want to press the button under yes. It tells us the engine data is loaded and we must remove the module to continue. So remove the module, place it in a safe place where it won't get lost. What this has done for us, it's already assigned the name, so we press the scroll button in the upper left hand corner. It's set our control type to diesel, set our control type to Lionel Legacy, and it's set up our sound to Legacy Rail Sounds. To exit this menu, we press info. When I do that, you'll notice the cab number appears on the screen momentarily, 957. It's also named us the Frisco SD40 across the top. Now what this has done for us is it's populated the touchpad with volume up, crew talk, manual RPM up, volume down, shut down. When the locomotive is moving and you turn the throttle, you can see there's an increase in the throttle, the icon changes to a black triangle. That's emergency stop. It's a sequence you can play while the locomotive's moving. To get that back to the black circle, you simply stop the locomotive and it becomes a shutdown icon. We have manual RPMs down, tower comm, smoke off, smoke on. Again, 3 levels of smoke with legacy engines. We have ditch lights on, ditch lights off, engine reset, Rule 17 lighting on, Rule 17 lighting off. We press the speed bar and we get our 6 preset railroad speeds, tower comm, smoke off, smoke on, the labor increase intensity bar graph. This will increase or decrease directly proportionate to effects up and effects down. You'll notice as I press the up button, it'll say labor increase across the top, and this bar graph will increase. Just a visual representation on where you stand for the laboring sound of the diesel. And finally, this is number 1 is roll speed. It's the very first speed step the locomotive will attain. To exit the speed menu, you simply press aux 1. You come back to the touchpad for the locomotive. Now that we have our SD40 lubricated, let's go ahead and get it on the track, get it running. Before we actually program the locomotive number, we want to make sure we add smoke fluid. Now you can use the smoke fluid funnel and the pipette that came with the locomotive. And to do that, you want to make sure that you fill the smoke fluid up from basically the tip of the pipette to about 3/4 of the way up to the first line on the actual pipette itself. However, these SD40s, they have a grill over top of the smokestack. So we found in our experience that putting smoke fluid into a stack like this usually causes quite a bit of a mess. So what we're going to use is one of these needle applicator bottles that we have here in customer service. And we're just going to put this needle down through the grills, through the louvers, right into the smoke unit, and just give a quick squirt to make sure we've got enough fluid in the heating chamber. You can pick up those bottles at Technitool or US Plastics. They both sell those needle applicator bottles. Really handy. They help you get the fluid right into the batting instead of spilling that fluid all over the funnel. The downside to putting smoke fluid in the funnel is that typically the vapors will collect around the fluid, so you have less exhaust coming out of the stack. Whereas if you get the fluid right into the batting and there's no deposits on the funnel, you get more vapor that actually comes out of the smoke unit. Okay, So let's go ahead and get this locomotive programmed. On the SD40-2s, there's a square, I'm not even really sure what it is, perhaps air filter or something here on the top, rectangular. This actually comes out. So it's a good idea to just go ahead and remove that completely, so you've got a place to get your finger in to remove the roof hatch. So pull the roof hatch off, place the program run switch in the program position, apply track power. Now you'll notice when we apply track power, the only thing that comes on are the front marker lamps, or number boards rather, and the rear number boards. The class lamps, headlamps, ditch lamps, and the interior cab light all remain off. And this is normal for legacy locomotive operation. So using our numbering convention of the last 2 digits, we're going to program this engine as engine 57. So using our cab 2, we're going to press engine 57 and the set button. Horn sounds to acknowledge it took the command. We can place the program run switch back in the run position. Replace the hatch on the roof, making sure that the other 2 switches are in the SMK smoke on position and the ODY for Odyssey 2 speed controller to be enabled. So put the roof hatch back on, reinsert this small rectangular piece, and we're ready to operate the locomotive. So let's go ahead and turn on the smoke unit by pressing aux1 and the smoke icon 3 times to get the smoke high. It's not uncommon for it to take a few 15-20 seconds for smoke to be produced or start generating on these diesels. So we've got the smoke unit on, it's producing smoke now. As you'll notice, the cab light is illuminated while the locomotive's at idle. When I crack the throttle and get the engine running, the cab light will go off and the ditch lights here in the front will come on. When the ditch lights are on and the engine is moving, you blow the horn, you'll get the oscillation on the ditch lights. Go through all 3 levels of the horn now. The bell. Crew talk.
I've got a full tank of fuel. Engine is at restricted speed. Out.
Tower comm.
Dispatcher here. All clear inbound. Over. Thank you, sir. Approaching now. Out.
Go ahead and get the engine moving a little quicker so you can hear the RPMs. There's 8 levels of RPMs on these legacy SD40s, which is true to the prototype. Prototype engines have 8 notches or 8 rev levels on the diesel engine. The legacy engines have 8 levels as well. Okay, so I've just stopped the locomotive, you can tell because the ditch lights went out. These SD40s are equipped with sequence control. What sequence control is a series of sounds that are related directly to throttle. So as you make changes in the throttle on the locomotive, the sounds will play different sequences, different horns, tower comm, crew talk announcements, etc. To enter sequence mode, you simply press and hold the aux1 or the straight arrow key for 3 seconds. The locomotive will tell you it's entered sequence mode by 2 dings of the bell and a quick toot of the horn. Works like this. We're now in sequence mode. What this means is when we go to speed step 1, the locomotive doesn't actually begin moving, but it does go through a series of sound sequences. So let's go ahead and go to speed step 1.
Cleared outbound.
When I turn the throttle to go to speed step 2, the bell will come on automatically and stay on until I reach speed step 23. You still have manual control over all of these sounds, but there's also this automated sequence that plays as well. So let's go ahead and get the engine running. You'll notice the ditch lights will pop on. Get up above speed step 23.
We are on the move. Over. Copy that. Have a good run. Out.
So now we're above speed step 23. The icons on the touchpad of the cab 2, after we've loaded the module, in the lower left-hand corner we have ditch light control on and ditch light control off. Basically all that does is it either turns the ditch lights on or turns the ditch lights off. So pressing the off function, as you can see, turns your front ditch lights off. Hitting on turns them back on again. In the lower right hand corner of the touchpad there's Rule 17 and Rule 17 off. And all that really is that the headlights, both front and rear, will, when the locomotive comes to a stop, it'll get dim, and when the locomotive begins moving, it'll get bright again. And that's just a courtesy that the railroads do, or the engineers do, to prevent from blinding an oncoming train. Instead of sitting at idle with its headlight at full intensity, it lowers the intensity so that oncoming trains can see what's actually ahead of them. So we're going to go ahead and crack the throttle up here, and do a couple throttle responses, and you'll hear the sound sequences that come out of them.
Dispatcher, I'm at slow speed. Out.
Apologize for the wobble. These rollers sometimes cause these diesels to wobble pretty violently. The squealing brake sounds.
Train is at a complete stop. I'll let you know when we're underway. Out.
So you'll notice that when the locomotive stopped, the cab light again is illuminated. We'll go ahead and change direction. When the rear headlight is on, the front class lamps or marker lamps are illuminated. When the front headlight is on, the rear marker lamps are illuminated. To exit sequence mode, we simply press the aux 1 or straight arrow key and hit R or reset or aux 1 0 on a cab 1. Horn tells us that we've left sequence mode. You can also add fuel to this locomotive by pressing and holding that R icon on the touchpad. I'll do that now.
Fill her up!
The fuel loading sound will play as long as you're holding down R. Once you release, you'll get this dialogue.
Dispatcher, we've got a full tank. Over. Copy that. Out.
The locomotive is equipped with front and rear electrocouplers or coil couplers. You can open them by pressing either the F icon, which will open the front coupler, and the R icon, which will open the rear coupler. Go ahead and do the shutdown sequence, which is aux 1 and the round black circle in the center of the touchpad.
Going off duty. Have a good one. Out.
Once we go through the shutdown mode, smoke unit turns off, cab light turns off, headlights and marker lamps turn off. The only thing illuminated at this point are the number boards on the front and rear of the locomotive. These SD40-2s will be shipping to your dealers in the very near future. We hope that you pick some of these up and start making money on your railroad. Thank you.